All right, so I'm really, really grateful that Kelly is here with me today because we're going to celebrate her daughter, Ray, and I'll have her introduce her in just a moment. But they have a really, really incredible story, huge transformation for this little bug. So, Kelly, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We're excited to share our story.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start with just a little bit about Ray and a background in her story. How old was she when you started seeing signs? What did it look like for her?
So, we have homeschooled from the start, and I have a background in education. I've taught for, 10 years in the public school setting. And so we've schooled since, day one for her. Like there was never a time where she wasn't being taught. But her brother started reading at 4. And so that was kind of the pattern I expected Ray to follow was, okay, if I've taught my son and he's picked it up at 4, then she's going to pick it up too. And then for the next 4 years, we just never picked it up. And we went to homeschool conventions and we went to reading workshops. And I have a degree in phonics. And I just thought, okay, well, in some European countries, kids don't even learn to read till they're 8. So maybe there's some data behind. We need to wait. And it's just the light bulb's going to turn on when she hits 8. Um, but it didn't. She turned 8 and we never could get the the alphabet. We could not learn the alphabet. And that was so disheartening when she had seen her brother read to her books for the past 4 years. And it's a horrible thing to not be able to give one of your children something that you felt like you so easily gave one of your other children and have no reason why you can't do it.
Gosh, that's so it's so valuable, and thank you for sharing that because we've heard from a lot of families, especially ones who homeschool. It's like, gosh, because of these other children, I've learned more about the difference. Like the developmental path looked like this for one child and looked like something completely different. So I guess tell me more about what that was like for you, Kelly. What did you do in that moment when you're like, oh my goodness, it's clearly different for Ray? What did you decide to do?
Well, my husband and I talked around like in circles for months of we need a new curriculum.
Okay.
Maybe Ray needs something bright and shiny. And so we switched curriculums. We would try things for 3 or 4 months at a time and think this is going to be it. We did all tactile, all kinesthetic, to all auditory, to all visual, to combinations of the three. And then it ultimately just became there has to be something else going on. What could it be? We finally made the switch to explode the code phonics curriculum to teach letters, and she had completed the first year successfully of Explode the Code. It's called the pre-primer. I thought, okay, well, okay, maybe we finally found like the golden egg here. And then, but all that did was teach letters in isolation. And I knew in my heart of hearts that she wasn't retaining those letters. But if she had enough pictures on the page, she could figure out that, well, all of these things start with "wa." So it's a "wa." But all of those pages actually had the letters on the page. So there was never really an opportunity for Ray to show what she knew aside from schoolwork. So anything we did in the moment never translated to us being in the car and her seeing a stop sign and going, that's an S. None of that ever triggered. Like, you never heard Ray say things that you heard other kids say, like, that's an M for McDonald's. There was never recognition of, hey, Chick-fil-A has a C. I mean, in places that we would go all the time, there was never a recognition for Ray. And so when we switched to the second level of Explode the Code, you begin to put letters in chunks and CVC patterns. And what I noticed was she didn't just flip every letter. Because I thought, well, that could be developmentally too. Like, I mean, I've taught in 10 years. I know that once kids start to read and write, it is developmentally appropriate for them to flip things. And I'm thinking she just got a delayed start. And but then what I noticed is not only was there no connection to the letters she was supposed to write. So if it was clearly an A sound, she might put a I, a O, a U. There was no true connection, no logical reason why she was choosing the letters she would put. And then if it was a word she'd seen all the time, like cat, she would write tack or talk or tick. So she was flipping the entire word. So it wasn't just letters, it was words. And when I saw her flipping words, I knew we had to get assessed. And when we got assessed, so she turned 8 in September, and we had her formally assessed in February, and she was assessed with the lady who assessed her said that she had the most severe case of dyslexia she had ever seen. And it was no wonder we were not making progress at home. And she was also diagnosed with dysgraphia. And they said, prepare that the next time you come back, we'll probably say dyscalculia too. So, yeah.
So you and I have talked about this before, emotionally, what that experience was like for you to get the diagnosis and to hear that like this was the most severe case that you had ever seen. Like tell me more. What did that conversation sound like? What did it feel like for you to get that diagnosis for her?
I know that it's people would probably expect you to go, okay, you have relief, but it didn't feel like there was relief. It felt like the bottom just dropped out. Uh, the lady specifically asked for Ray to be removed, and so my husband took her home from the assessment, and she sat with me in the lobby, and she just looked at me and said, "You, as a homeschool mom of 5 kids, you will never overcome this." She literally said, "This is an impossible task for you." She needs intensive 2 to 3 times a week therapy for years before she will ever make any progress. And it, I will never forget sitting in that lobby thinking, how can Ray not be meant to be my daughter? Like, and that's a weird association, but like Ray was mine. And I believe I have the responsibility to teach her. And this lady who has this degree who assesses kids right and left all the time is telling me that I can't help my daughter, that I have failed her by putting her in a home with 5 other kids and homeschooling her. And there was so much wrapped up in that moment. But for me, that moment was you, Kelly, will never, as a mom, be able to meet your child's needs. And I just thought, where do we go from here? Like, I question, why did the Lord give me Ray if I'm only going to fail her for her life? Because she's got to be able to read when she's a mom. She needs to fill out her kids' medical records and doctor's appointments, and she's got to be able to read stop signs. And what do we do? And the lady gave me no hope. She said, I know that you're trained in Orton Gillingham, but clearly that's not working because it's so severe. And she actually said, I don't know what to tell you to do besides get an intensive tutor. And I'm just thinking, all right, it felt like we were at ground zero.
Thank you so much for sharing that because I know that you're not the only person that has had that experience, where somebody kind of tells you news that is pretty extreme. I mean, you and I both know that that's not true, and
Yeah.
we'll share momentarily just exactly how not true that is. But I really appreciate you sharing what it felt like for you in that moment because I think your story is going to bring hope to a lot of people who have been exactly in that spot and have felt exactly how you felt. And what would you say were some of the primary things going through your head at that moment? other than like, okay, she's mine, what what else came up for you?
That I had no idea what we were gonna do.
Yeah.
Like we felt hopeless. I
Yeah.
got in the car and somebody had lunch for me in the car, and I just remember thinking, I can't eat this. Like I'm sick to my stomach. What are we going? I mean, the lady even said, I don't know what you're gonna do. And I thought, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do either. There seemed to be just no answer. There literally seemed to be no hope because I tried every program. I mean, I was a public school teacher for 10 years. Like
Yep.
I literally taught everybody else's kids to read.
Yep.
So like I know the plan. I can do Orton Gillingham. I have the certification. You can look at my teaching degree. You can look at my son who's excelling and passing all of his his state tests with almost 100% accuracy. And then I've got my
Yep.
daughter that I can't help. And I didn't have even a starting point because when you Google online kids with dyslexia, no, there's no like, but if your dyslexia is super severe, this is the program you need. It's all generic. And I'm thinking, I've tried all the generic things. I'm gonna need more than this. She needs more than this, but I didn't know what to do.
Yep, totally. And so, I mean, to your point, Kelly, like when you guys started and you did the baseline assessments, I'm just looking at her scores now. It looked like she was below the first percentile on her word list. She was below the first percentile on her spelling list. Her phonological awareness was only 40% accurate. So yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with the assessment that she did have a severe case. So let's talk about I think it's just going to be fun to blow to blow the mind out of anybody who's listening to this. Let's talk about what happened to Ray as a result of doing the program, and then let's talk about like how much time it actually took her to do that, and what she's doing now as a result. So I'll just start with the numbers, and then let's talk about all the fun stuff. So her phonological awareness went from being 40% accurate to 100% accurate. She mastered that. Um, Her word list score went from below the first percentile to the 96th percentile. 96th percentile. And her spelling list went from below the first percentile to the 93rd percentile. So, will you blow people's minds a little bit more, Kelly? Like, how long did it take you to do that?
Well, let's start with I was told maybe at age 15 she'd start to read. Age 15. So I was given a 7-year window of bi-weekly intensive, expensive therapy, which we had no starting point for.
Yeah,
Because no one around here does that. But we applied in May. I believe my starting date was May 5th
yep,
of last year, and we finished in December. So uh, 8 months.
yep.
8 months, and she went from can't tell you the letters to reading and writing. You know, when I truly was worried when we did the intake, and the friend that asked me, or they recommended their son had gone through your program, and they had recommended us just to reach out and take the interview. And I thought, well, I'll take the phone call. What's the worst they can say? But then I asked my friend, I said, is there such a thing as too low? Like, can they turn me down if she doesn't score high enough on the assessments? Like, and I was so fearful of rejection. I remember the day of the interview, I had a neighbor watch all of our kids. I tested all of our friends because I didn't know what it was going to be like. I texted all of our friends and I said, pray. Like we need
Oh,
prayer. Like all of our people were praying for the interview because I was worried that she was going to be too low to start. And I couldn't tell. I had watched all of the Retraining the Brains videos online that I could find. I had done
yep,
my research, but like there wasn't like an entry level requirement.
yep.
And so we were just thankful that she was accepted. But one of the requirements is that we're supposed to send a piece of writing. Like that's part of the sample, like initial intake. And I remember emailing, I don't have one because Ray refused to write.
Okay.
Like, there's not Ray drew and drew and drew. And for years, and when we would go to the library, I would check out the picture books and she would come up with these incredible stories and could remember the stories that she made. But I didn't have one sample of writing that wasn't, you know, I heart mom. And those were copied. Like those were not, she didn't sound out mom. That happened in the Retrain the Brain program.
Oh,
So
wow.
we went from, I can't even give you a sample of writing at 8 years old to, we keep having to tap her at church because she's writing books, on the note pages at
Tell
the
me
pew.
more about
And I'm
this. I
like,
haven't heard about this yet.
you need to be on task. And she comes out and she's got these, but mom, I made this picture book and it's right. And it's, in the middle of the program, it was, very simple sentences of this is the cat, this is the fat cat sat. And it's all rhyming. And then to the point of, we're 3 or 4 months into the program and now the words are being spelled correctly. But not to jump ahead of you, but one of the
No,
first things
no, go
I
ahead. Go
noticed
ahead.
was she's writing and no one's asked her to.
Yeah,
Um,
which is huge.
and yeah, and it was like, do we correct her for being off task in church? Like, I don't know. Is this the win? Is this the Lord answering our prayers in church?
Yeah.
Um, so, but she started writing, but then what we noticed was even though initially some of the vowels still were not correct at the beginning, they were in order.
Yeah.
It was a logical order to what she was writing. And I thought, okay, something within these first few modules has switched in her brain. And I didn't know how. I didn't know how it happened because I didn't see it happen. Because you're
Yep.
not, in those first couple of modules, there's no writing. But something clicked in my girl's brain and she started writing and things were now like they made sense. Like, and
Oh,
it
wow.
it felt great to go, she's handing me something. And like when you're like your toddler draws something and you have to guess what in the world they're drawing, and you're like, Lord, please tell me what this child drew because I don't want to make them cry. But that's how we felt a lot of the time with Ray was like we had no concept of what was in her brain by the time it got to the paper initially. And so we never had to guess like what she was writing about because once it clicked, it clicked.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is always like my favorite part of the conversation, but tell me what it's like now. Like if you were to think about some of the things that she's doing now that look very, very different from what it looked like before, what kind of things are you celebrating?
And I feel like we kiss her on her forehead all the time. Like, because it's such a shock to our systems, to mine and my husband, that we all sit down every morning and we read together. For us, for our family, it's a chapter of the Bible every morning together. And Ray reads. Like, and the Bible is not the easiest text. Like, you
Yeah,
have the
fair.
weirdest names you could ever have. And she reads them and she's sounding out things that, like this morning, the word was prophesy.
Wow.
And she read it and looked at me, and I was like, that's it.
Wow.
Because she's never read that,
Of course. Yeah.
it looks like she reads books on her own. And now these are not like, these are not Magic Treehouse books that I'm sending her in her room with, but she does have the Judy Blume books that she got for Christmas.
Amazing.
And I do see those on her bed. And
Amazing.
she'll tell me, and she'll be like, this girl was funny. And I'm like, oh, she's reading it. But it's not like I can say, all right, Ray, I want you to go read this book. And some of these books are first grade level, some of these are second grade level, but those are independent reading levels. Like that is, she can go and read it and come back and laugh and tell me what happened in the book without even having to look at the book. Like I've looked out, we have a swing on our back porch, and I've looked out there so many times in the past month because it's only January, so she finished in December. And she's got a stack of readers. Like I never asked her to. And she'll ask her younger sisters too, and she'll say, all right, Rose. Come on, do you want me to read you a story? And I just think of all the times that her brother read her stories and Ray's like, I'm doing it. Or she's
Oh,
quick to help one of her younger brothers with schoolwork, quick to do it. Um, and it's just, or the other day, this was one of those moments of, for somebody that doesn't have dyslexia, once you start studying it, you never kn like you can't imagine how intricately dyslexia affects your life because you don't experience it. And um, I mean, I've all like any book on Amazon that's about dyslexia, I own it. And just the silent struggles that people with dyslexia have that those with us without it, we have no idea. And probably, I don't know, a month, 2, 3 months ago, I don't know. It's all a blur at this point because it's all good news now. But she just said, Mom, that says stop. And in my, I took for granted that all of my kids know that, like, to me, it's just logical. Of course, the stop sign says stop. But for
yeah.
her, they never had a logical pattern because sounds never connected to letters and
Yes.
can't make words. She
Yes.
just knew. Probably because as a toddler, when we're walking, I say, all right, we always stop at the red sign, right? That's
Yep.
the stop. And we call it, that's the stop sign. But for her, she never knew it said stop. And I just remember, like, I'm so, when would she have figured that out, Rebecca? When? At
Yeah.
15? When she's driving? Would she have figured out that the stop sign said stop? Because that was the age I was given. That was the hope, was 7 years later, she'll read. Maybe she can read stop sign when she's driving a car. Where was the hope in that? And now my 8-year-old, well, she's 9 now. So we just celebrated her 9th birthday.
Aw, happy birthday.
And and that was her goal. Like when we started, when you interview, you have to give your goal. And yeah, ideally you ask your kid for her goal. And her goals, she had two. Well, she had three. Her first goal was she wanted to be able to read her Bible because we read it
Okay.
every morning. And she couldn't read hers. So she can now do that. She does it
Good
every
for her.
morning. And every morning, my husband and I look at each other and we're just amazed at, like, it's like, I know we did the work, but we
Yes, you
still look
did.
at each other like, how did this happen? Like, how
Yeah.
did we go from crying over schoolwork to our baby girl just is reading and it's pretty fluent. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's super fluent. And we're just like, it happened. Her other goal was she wanted to read her birthday cards when she turned 9,
Oh,
and we didn't quite get there. We were close. We didn't quite make it. So we started the program in May, and we were hopeful we should have finished in September. But again, race was very severe, and
yep.
we ended up taking to December. So that's a goal we're going to check off this coming September.
That's right.
And her other goal was she said she didn't want to have to ask her brother or her best friend to read when they play games anymore. And like that's one of those silent struggles that she's had that she's not going to tell me about because it's embarrassing to say it in front of her friends. But I can hear her saying, "Hey, what does that say? What's on the screen?"
Yep.
And isn't that crazy? Something as simple as playing a game on the
Game.
Switch. And she's never shown interest or asked for Christmas for a Switch. Only her brother has one. And I wonder if it's because she knew
It
she
was
wouldn't
ready.
be able to play it without him because she couldn't read the screen. Like
Yep.
we're
Yep. You're right.
living a totally different life now. Like she will sit down and play with her friends when they come over. If they bring technology, she will sit and play, but she always prior to this deferred to staying in her room and
Wow.
playing with whoever the younger kids were because she could lead those kids, but she couldn't participate if they pulled out Monopoly. If any think of you just don't know how much reading is in your daily life until you start realizing your kid isn't choosing to do it because they don't enjoy it. They're choosing to not do it. Like she wouldn't even play Yahtzee with us. The scorecard.
Sure.
The scorecard.
Yep.
Um, so I have it, interloper. And Yes, just a minute. Thank you. Yes, go out.
It's part
But
of mom life. It's
anyways,
totally okay.
yeah. Um, it's amazing all the things that she was turning down that we had no idea.
Yeah, of
And
course.
now, like family game night, she wants to play Clue. We played Scrabble. We played
Wow.
Scrabble. We had 5 kids. We sent 3 to bed, and the older 2 wanted, it's called Upwards, and it's like Scrabble, but you build it on top of the letters.
Fun.
And every turn, we're just like, Ray's building words, and they're right. And we're just like,
Yeah. Wow.
we lived it, but we're still so amazed because it was 8 years of thinking it's gonna click. One day it's gonna click, and it never did. So
Well, it's thank you for all of that and congratulations too, because it's huge for you too, especially as a homeschool family. I mean, like you think about, again, to your point about little things, the little things that would inevitably be more hard about your school day, whether it's the dynamic of like, oh, I have to ask Ray again to do this thing, or I have to
yeah,
spend all this time, giving Ray these instructions all by herself, and she can't be independent, or she can't go ahead and do other things that she might want to or have interest in the curriculum. So I think it makes a huge difference on the
yeah.
dynamic that you have at school too. So huge, huge. Okay, so I want to talk about two things. One being your mindset, because you definitely are striking me as someone who is like, look, I know that this is what somebody told me, but I'm not really willing to accept that laying down. Like you just don't strike me as someone who is willing to accept that, like, yes, you might have this severe case, but 8 years is just like unacceptable to me. So, how did you navigate that path? Because I think a lot of people are probably in your same spot where they're trying to figure out, like, what on earth do I do? You're probably researching into the night, trying to figure out solutions. Like, how did you come to our door? How did that happen for you?
Honestly, it was by I would say it was the sovereignty of God. But we had friends that had gone through the program, and we never knew it. We had no idea that they had done retrain the brain because
Talk about
they just they felt like that was their son's story to tell. But when we called, it, my best friend's husband just happened to call him the day of we got Ray's scores. Such a coincidence. And we're all just distraught. We're all distraught. Ray's not distraught because she doesn't know.
yeah,
She thinks she knocked it out the park.
yep,
Um, but they we were all distraught. And so by the time that they I need you to go out, okay? Will we make ice pop? I will make you an ice pop in a minute. No, how will we? I have some. I have a secret stash of ice pops. To eat? Yep. Here, let me lock you out the door. Come on. Oh, okay. If you want ice, you have to stay or there's class. Okay, sorry.
it's totally you. It's just being a mom. That's how it goes.
Um, but anyway, so we had friends that called us the day that we got Ray's scores, and from the original assessor back in February, and they were like, "Hey, something to consider is we did this program called Retrain the Brain with our son last year. Maybe it's worth looking into because he's reading on his own now." And we just kind of filed that nugget in the
Yep,
back of our heads, and we prayed and we researched everything. Now that we had an
yep,
official diagnosis, like we had a paper, so we had
yes,
maybe a starting point.
yep,
But then we looked into retrain the brain, but it was between from February to May until we were ready to move forward. Because I wanted to try a few more things.
yep,
I wanted, I thought, okay, she's dyslexic, so there is an issue in the communication of her brain. Let me try, instead of something that is purely tactile or purely auditory, or, purely visual. Let me see if I can get some sort of program in front of her that does a better job of connecting the three. And so we actually tried Hooked on Phonics for the 3 or 4 months. And I started to see slight progress for
Yep.
the very first time. We were starting to learn like V and W, but we never started reading. And her writing never ordered correctly. So even though she was starting to identify letters correctly, it wasn't translating to the writing. Like still couldn't write anything. There was nothing she was willing to write. Um, so around May, we felt like, all right, let's pull the trigger and make a phone call. They can have to say is either no, she doesn't qualify because she's too low, or we feel like it's not the right direction for our girl or for our family because we didn't really know what it
Yep.
entailed until we made a phone call.
Okay, thank you for sharing that because I think that you're definitely not alone in trying to figure out, what do we do with this information? And you're not alone either in that oftentimes you get the diagnosis, it's a piece of paper, but it doesn't come with a roadmap of what to do next. And so that's kind of on you to say, okay, well, what on earth do we do next? So I know you and I have talked about this before that investing in a program is a big leap and you're trying to make a decision about whether or not to do that and does it feel right and um, often when you're investing in a program it's like, oh gosh, can we do this? It feels expensive. Like, will you talk me through what that decision making process looked like for you? How did you get to the point where you said, yeah, we're going to do this?
Well, it wasn't an easy place to get to for us because I'm a homeschool mom, so
Yep.
I have no income. And so we are a one income family with 5 kids. And so when you're looking at something that's several thousand of dollars, the reality is I was not originally looking at it as a program to actually retrain the brain. I was thinking, how, why on earth is something that's going to teach her to read thousands of dollars when I haven't spent that much on her trying to read for, 4 to 5 years?
Sure.
Like, because in my head, I'm thinking, I need a reading program, is what I was looking for. I needed an effective dyslexia branded reading program. But I knew in the back of my mind that we had friends that are saying, we did this, it was worth it. And they have 6 kids.
Yeah.
And they've said that it was worth it knowing their expenses and the mom in that family worked part-time
Yeah.
teacher as well. So it was like, all right, this is another teacher who
Yeah.
is trained and said that this is the program we need to do. And that friend very just wisely said, well, Kelly, you can either choose to spend double that amount of money over the course of the next 8 years of intensive therapy, hoping it works, hoping you're able to get a tutor that will consistently meet with your daughter over those times. And what's the likelihood that you're going to get the same tutor for 8 years that your daughter's going to want to attend and that your daughter's not going to get burnt out going to intensive tutoring therapy? And is that sustainable? Is that sustainable for your daughter or your family to twice a week go to basically reading boot camp? And can you sustain that financially? Or do you want to come up with the money, bite the bullet, and have her reading before her ninth birthday? And it just seemed like if it's really about serving my child, I can serve her so much better if she's able to read sooner than later. And we have said so many times, and I know that the going rate of the program changes because there's always updates and improvements. And I know that you guys take feedback. But at our time, it was, around $7,000 to $8,000. And we have told Ray so many times, that's the best money we've ever spent because it's changed her life. And so if there were to be someone that's struggling with it, I talked with someone on the phone recently that's considering going through Retrain the Brain, and she got nervous because she thought, who am I giving? And like, this is just something on the internet. This is just reels. I can't go in person and meet these people. Like, there's no facility that I'm going to go to. And I said, well, you're right. But how do you want to spend your money? You can go to an in-person facility for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years with no guarantee that your child's going to read. But you've got these Google reviews. You're talking to real people saying, we did it. We spent our real money and we got real results in less than a year. And my family did. Like, it was the best money we have spent. And we would spend it again in a heartbeat, especially after going through the program. We'd spend it again.
That's powerful, Kelly. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. But you're right. I think it's really important to talk about because it's not easy, like you meet you meet people online and there's a lot of maybe some bad actors on the internet that cause people to maybe feel less confident or less certain. I know we've certainly had people say like, are these paid people? Like, so you're not a paid person, right, Kelly?
Right. No, definitely not. I paid for it.
Yeah, no, I think it's just it's a difficult time because you see your child really struggling. You as a parent feel very vulnerable because you really want to do everything that you can do to help. But it's tricky sometimes to know like what help is good help and what's actually going to move forward. So I guess will you talk about, because you've tried so many things, like what was it about this that you feel like really took it to a different level and made it be completely different for Ray than all of the other things that you'd tried before?
It wasn't a reading program. This was not another reading program. And that's why I was a skeptic. I really questioned what can they offer that I haven't already offered? And I don't mean that vainly.
No, of
I
course.
was legitimately baffled as to there cannot possibly be one more way to present A says ah. I've tried them all. What are you going to do differently? And that's why this worked, is because I never sat down with Ray once. And I hope everybody out there hears this. I never once in this program went through and went A, ah, apple. That I have done for the past, I mean, I've lost my mind saying A is apple, Ray, for the past 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And that's what worked for Ray is it took the pressure off because for the first several weeks, there's no visual. Like it's just listen to what I'm saying. Now do this really simple activity and watch it blow your child's mind. And it really does. Like I was telling you, it was all of a sudden we noticed she's not writing things backwards. Because at first it was like, oh, all of a sudden she's writing. And then it became, okay, she's writing, but things are wonky. But we didn't say anything because in the program
Yep.
we weren't supposed to be writing yet. And so
Yep.
we were just like, we're just gonna let her write. We're not gonna
Yep.
address it. And then eventually, as we moved through the program, it was like, okay, things are being in order. And it floored me that that could happen because I wasn't giving her any reading or writing instruction. It was all training her brain. And you have those videos that we watch at the beginning of the program. And you have several videos in the modules that teach the parents how to teach this curriculum. Um, but it talks about how the different areas of the brain aren't connecting. And that's the only way this makes sense is that it literally is reprogramming her brain. And so that my daughter isn't stressed out about, she was never stressed that she was going to have to look at a letter and not know what it said again because I was never required to show her a word and say, read it. Totally. I mean, it's not a
Right.
written program. That's why it works.
Perfect. Well, I thank you for that insight because I mean, I think you're probably different from a lot of other people that we work with in that you have tried so many things. You are a teacher, you are trained in Norton Gillingham, like you've got a lot of credentials that many other people don't have. So for you to say, I've already done, these 23, 50 things, and we didn't get any further than like maybe she could do it in this moment, but to apply it to something else is like no way that that's happening. I think it's really powerful powerful because holy cow, I mean, for her to be writing little books. And I think that's the best part about this, right? Like kids with dyslexia have gifts, and we don't talk about this enough, but whether it's creativity or spatial thinking or lateral thinking or thinking big picture, they've got so many things that their brain is able to do that other people can't. So I guess will you speak to what do you feel like has opened up for Ray now that we've been able to add reading and writing to the list of things that she's already amazing at?
Uh, I think Ray just seems lighter. I think that's the easiest way to answer it. It's that invisible weight that we don't see. And I don't know that shared this with you yet, but during that initial assessment for dyslexia at the place we went in February, the first assessment they gave her for her age, Ray couldn't take. And so the lady shut it down and came over and said, "What do you want to do?" Like she failed the dyslexia assessment. And I said, "I need you to try something else. Give me anything else." And I'm thinking, I know my girl is smart. Like I didn't have any concerns for, any sort of retardation or cognitive delay. Like I knew there was something happening in her brain that was wrong. And they did the second assessment. And she just looked at me almost after I was allowed to sit in the very back of the room. And you could just tell, like, the director would look up and look at me and then just let me know she's like failing this one too. So when she came to talk to me for a second time, she took a tangram set and it was a puzzle and it was in like a hexagon shape. And she said, "Here, Ray, play with this," and put it on her desk. And it was all, it fit perfectly in the puzzle. It was a put together puzzle. Well, Ray dumped it out, put the cardboard box away on the shelf, and just started playing. And then the lady talked with me and had her woes and how horrible it is. And I don't know what to try now. And by the time she said, "Okay, let me think about it." And so she goes back to her desk to start researching other assessments and whatever. She looked at Ray, and Ray had completely reassembled that tangram puzzle without the border in exactly the same pattern. And there was no picture. There was no picture that she referenced. Like she literally, I could
So
not have done
cool.
that. And when
So
the
cool.
assessor saw it, she was floored and it totally flipped the rest of the interview. And it wasn't an interview, it was an assessment. And from there, she was willing, like she saw Ray in a whole new perspective, and she was willing to help us get the diagnosis that we needed to do whatever it is we were going to do with that diagnosis. But it was like in that moment, she saw the Ray that I had seen for the past 8 years. And now I feel like that weight of dyslexia, like that lady's response to my daughter prior to seeing how special Ray is, I know that Ray carried that with her every day. And it's not there anymore. Like if you ask her to read something, she'll read it and she'll play games. Like I can't even begin to think of all the things she didn't do because she was afraid she'd have to read. Or, they talk about how there's all these studies with people with dyslexia, they need predictable patterns and routines because they can forget things like what's their left hand and what's their right hand. And I'm thinking, if it's something that simple, what else is my child concerned she's going to get wrong? When she was little, there were so many Ray-isms that we thought they're just Ray. They were dyslexia. Like we would go through the Chick-fil-A drive-through and she would say, "Mama, I want them little chickens. Get me those little chickens." And it was because she couldn't pull out nugget. Like, and I have a baby book where I just like wrote all of these Ray-isms and I thought it was just precious. This is my toddler Ray. And she never grew out of it. And so a while ago, my husband and I opened up her book and it was fun to see like it was crazy actually. Like I had basically diagnosed her in her baby book and didn't know it because we didn't know
Of course.
we didn't know what we didn't know.
Of course.
No one in our family is severely dyslexic. Through this program, we've realized my husband is dyslexic and his family is dyslexic now that we know what we know about dyslexia.
Yep.
But Ray's life has just totally changed. Like she'll even like when she calls things wrong, she always for years it's been I want a waffle, but what she's meant is I want a pancake.
Okay.
And so now it's like, Mom, I want a waffle. Nope, I want a pancake. Even just little things. Her like being able to tell me what she wants to eat and where she wants to eat. Who knew? I think you had in one of your I don't know if it was one of your stories or in a book I read, but it said that dyslexia is like a person going into the attic to retrieve something, but all the lights are off. So things are familiar, but you don't know with confidence that you're grabbing the right one. So you're scared to look when you get out of the attic and you're nervous that you don't have the right thing in your hand. And so you don't want to show anybody what you got. And I think that helped me understand what my daughter's doing, especially with reading. That's why she was pulling out the wrong sounds because she couldn't grab the right one. It was up there. She had all the stuff up there, and I knew it was up there, but she couldn't grab the right one. And so now I think the lights are on in the attic for my girl, and she's even playing sports, and she had no interest in sports. So I've seen her confidence in reading go to yeah. Like she'll throw the football when we go to homeschool co-op day. She never threw the football, and I think it was because she couldn't follow the movement and the direction and the words and it was too much. And now it's like she's willing to try it because her confidence in every area of her life is changing. She doesn't like
My
football, but she'll play.
That's okay, Ray. Oh my goodness. Wow, 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 wow. Um, what a beautiful, beautiful story. And Kelly, I can't thank you enough for being willing to share this with others because it's not easy. I have two dyslexic children myself, and trying to figure out like not only navigating the diagnosis, is this really what we're dealing with? Once you find out that is what you're dealing with, like how do we know what to do? How long do we want to take? What is that going to have an impact on? All of the different things. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey, her story with others, because holy cow, is it an inspiration? Thank you for that. Really
Yes.
appreciate it. Well, I I want to be mindful of your time because I know that you have a little person who's still probably anxiously waiting for you outside the door. But Kelly, thanks again for everything. We are so grateful that we got to be a part of your journey, of Ray's journey. Thank you for trusting us to be involved in that. But I truly mean it when I say that you have given her a gift, because you believed that it was possible, because you believed in her, because you took a leap of faith that there's something else that you could do. And so I give all the credit in the world to you for trusting in that.
I appreciate it. The I emailed you before, but this program, it changed our life. You said in her data that, we hope for, 0.8 of a standard deviation of growth, or you hope for maybe you'll get lucky and get a whole standard deviation of growth. And we were hopeful for any. We would have been fine with zero point 0.8. And Ray grew over 5. Like, so there's there's no words that can put into real meaning what it looks like when a child goes from below the first percentile to over the 97th percentile and grew 5 standard deviations. Like, the only thing you can really do is put that on a scale and let somebody look at it because it's life changing. Like, she is a different kid. And to say it's the best money we've ever spent is that is the biggest understatement we will ever have. Like, we will look back on our life as husband and wife and just have complete confidence that that was one of the things that we got right. Retrain the brain, trusting in something that we were scared to do. But we are thankful. I researched you like crazy because I thought,
Well, you found good
what does
things.
she have that I don't?
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I loved your Zooms. Like I loved that I could get on and have access to you. And I don't think the program talks about what a selling point that is enough because I could imagine that you as a mom of two who's created this program and is doing this movement for dyslexia, you can't have a lot of extra time. And yet you make yourself available and this is your ministry. Like it's your job, but I believe it's your ministry
I
and
believe that too.
it's blessed our family. And we, like, our family gives thanks for Retrain the Brain and for what you do because I'm sure God had a plan for had you not been brought to our lives, but like, we are thankful because, like, it's our girl, you know? And we have hopes and dreams for her, but she has her own hopes and dreams. And to grow 16 times the growth in 1 year, not even a year, like, it wasn't even a year, it was less than a school year, it was 8 months.
Wow.
Like you can't put a dollar amount on it, but if you did, I would say we paid it again in a heartbeat. So, thank
Wow.
you. Thank you for this program. And if Retrain the Brain ever needs anything, like you could count on our family to say, what do you need? We'll figure it out because we're thankful. So thank you, Dr. Joy.
Wow. Kelly, I am completely and utterly speechless. Thank you for that beautiful, beautiful share. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to carry that with me for always. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you. Okay, well, thank you. And to everybody here, again, I'm sure that you're saying thank you to Kelly for, being so open and willing to share. But again, these are like my very favorite things in the world to do. So again, Kelly, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Dr. Joy.
Got it.